Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Faz.
And I can't chew quick enough to get to my own line.
I'm always trying to get you on the chew. Sorry.
I talked a bit slower.
Sorry. I went straight into it.
We're here now.
Yeah.
We'll just have to deal with it.
That's Rich chewing on a Tangfastic as usual, because I just ply him with them for compliance. It's
the main reason I let you in the house.
It's rental for the room. Yeah. If we didn't have a suite, you'd be like, not this week, my friend.
No, you're on the driveway.
Could do it on the driveway this week. It's boiling. It's really nice.
It is quite warm. Yeah.
So, summer weather, and we've got summer sports. So, we kind of last year did a bit of a summer sort of series of sport podcasts, and we're kind of doing the same a little bit this year. Picking out, so there's a little bit of golf we're doing at some point, and then we're doing the football or the soccer today.
Ooh.
Feel free to jump in about that.
I think you're doing an intro. Seemed rude to interrupt.
Yeah, no, so
yeah,
there we go. Yeah,
right,
exactly. That's what
it's been a long day.
So, the Euros are on at the moment, 2024, for their proper slogan / logo, and Copa America has just started as well. So, which I weirdly find myself a bit more interested in what's going on in Copa America than I do the Euros, and I think I've had a lot of Europe recently in my life. I feel like as in like not being there.
Completed it, mate.
But yeah, just I don't know what it is like, as in, and possibly even from a footballing point of view or a soccer point of view.
Fair.
So we did do a football podcast last year, and we did a couple. We did FIFA and we did Football Manager with Paddy as a guest. And hopefully we should be covering different ground, I guess, this time. And that's why I kind of went with the soccer angle, because I think all of our games we've picked this time have the word soccer in them rather than football.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So we did FIFA football last year. We did FIFA 09 for the PSP. We did FIFA football for the PS Vita. And we did FIFA 21 for the Switch. So, and we did touch a bit on Pro Evolution Soccer at the time and talked about the kind of, I guess, war between Pro Evo and FIFA. So we thought this time we would have a little look maybe at some older games and possibly even some games that are relevant to Pro Evo, a Pro Evo game itself, and also some of its beginnings as well. So I'm going to be looking at ISS, which is International Superstar Soccer Deluxe for the SNES from 1995. And you're going to be looking at?
Good question. Sega Worldwide Soccer 98.
That is not a positive start. You're like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Here's the game. And then I am going to be looking at Pro Evolution Soccer 6 for the PSP from 2006. So a little bit of sort of mid-90s football regalia, soccer. and then... and then we're going to look at Pro Evo as well, because we did touch on it when we did the FIFA podcast, but I think that it probably needs a little bit more. Does it? Maybe it doesn't need any of my respect. Maybe it just needs a little bit more time. Be the best to talk about it.
Tell people that you like it in a slightly longer fashion.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So, have you watched any of the Euros? Watched football? Or...
Yeah. I've been watching a fair bit. I was off ill for a bit of last week, so I had plenty of time to watch a few episodes.
Yes.
A few episodes? Fucking hell, this is how ill I was. Right?
Well, to be fair, I'm going to be honest, I think I've watched more episodes of Bridgerton last week than I did of minutes of Euros.
Different balls.
Yeah. Oh, there were balls all right. That was in, yeah. So, I've never watched Bridgerton before. I wasn't really watching either. I was playing over the top of my Switch or PSP, or watching over the top of those while I was playing my games. But, when the sex was on, it was good. You'd watch the sex, and then you'd turn over to Gary Lineker talking football, lads. So
it's dangerously manly.
So I haven't watched a lot of the Euros, and I think I've had a little bit of a, like I was just alluding to, the Copa America. I don't know what it is. I've been a bit flat about it this year. I've not quite got into it, but seeing Scotland get knocked out last night made me feel like I don't want to go home yet. Actually, I need to be a bit more like, I need to be a bit more positive about the terrible England performances that we've been seeing so far.
Get a bit more invested.
Yeah. The USA beat Bolivia 2-0 last night. That was, as in,
well done.
They
I assume.
Yeah, probably.
Are Bolivia a good team?
I would guess the USA were a better team than Bolivia. You'd hope so. I mean, from a point of view that I guess how much money the USA probably have compared to Bolivia, you'd hope they'd put the money into it.
I think USA have possibly turned up at more World Cups. That's kind of the only barometer I've got. So forgive my ignorance when it comes to Bolivian football.
Yeah. This is why we needed Paddy last time. Didn't even know about Bolivia.
The man's a walking encyclopedia.
So, without further ado then, let's wind back to 1995 and when I only just realised this when I was like sort of researching the games that the FIFA World Rankings were only started coming into being around the mid-90s. I think it was 1992. So, a little bit of trivia for you to win a prize actually. That is in, and you don't have to get it right to win the prize, so it's okay.
Is that really winning?
Yeah. Is it winning 11? Soccer,
see what you've done.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was shit. So at the first Euros that the FIFA World Rankings were installed at,
right?
What ranking do you think England were in 1996? Euro 1996.
Oh God,
it's not good.
Was it not?
They missed the World Cup in 1994. So
okay, fair enough. See, Euro 96 is possibly the first time I watched like a football tournament and actually paid attention to what was going on.
Yeah.
So in my head, it's like, oh, England were great.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
They were pretty good, to be fair.
Pretty good.
Got to the semi-final.
I mean, it sounds like you're saying they were punching above their weight when it comes to the rankings.
When it comes to numerical value, yeah.
Somewhere outside the top 20. Top 50?
24th.
24th,
yeah. Jeez. So that is our lowest ever. We're currently ranked at our highest ever at a Euros, joint with the last Euros, which is, do you know?
Somewhere in the top 5?
Yeah, 4. Yeah. Well, we're 5th now. We were 4th from the start of the Euro.
Oh, funny that.
It's got pretty shit. So, but anyway, you win a prize. I have brought Rich for this audio podcast, some Euro 2024 stickers. So,
what have we got in here?
While Rich is doing that, I'll start introducing my game then. So, yeah, ISS Deluxe.
I've got a shiny.
Oh, no! Oh, amazing.
Straight off the bat.
That's awesome. Right, okay, I can't start till I know which shiny you've got.
It's the Croatian.
Oh, no.
I've got half of a posh building. What is that?
What is
that? Don't know. Could be anywhere.
Are you saying it's part of Germany, you would hope?
Presumably. Simons from Netherlands. Alabek from Romania.
Yeah, that guy.
Blulet from Turkey.
We'll come back to funny names later.
Paddy, I've got a Swiss player in here, but his surname's really long.
Aibischer? Yeah.
Please correct me on that at your earliest convenience.
So, do you call it packing? I think that's what you do. You pack a pack of stickers now, don't you?
Do you pack a pack of stickers?
That's what the kids do.
Peter pack a pack of stickers.
They pack. They pack a. If you open a pack,
pick a pack of stickers.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Pick a pack of stickers.
You okay?
I've had a very long day.
So ISS Deluxe then. So I went for the SNES version just because I wanted to see what a Nintendo soccer game looked like. Because as I've previously said in the podcast, I've never really played that much Nintendo prior to the Wii, and yeah, So this is a sequel to ISS. It's a bit weird, really, because Konami at the exact same time had two sort of, I guess, prongs, if you will, to their footballing domain. That is, and they started off with ISS, and that kind of was international football on Nintendo consoles, mostly.
Right.
They kind of branched a bit to PlayStation as well. But then they also had the winning... It was called Goalstorm. Goalstorm is the very first... So...
That sounds like some kind of horrible illness.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't come in today. I've got Goalstorm.
No one's going to ask what that is, are
Only
they?
Goalstorm's playing up.
If only Harry Kane had Goalstorm. So, yeah, Goalstorm, which actually then became Winning 11, which then became Pro Evolution Soccer. But they're both from Konami, and they both started around the same time. Now
Because I always assumed Winning 11 was just the Japanese name.
Well,
It's not as simple as that.
Yeah, so no. So it's really weird. So they had two channels, if you will, of soccer games going at the same time. And I don't really understand why.
I remember being younger and being very confused about the whole ISS versus Pro Evolution thing.
Well, you would be, because the very first PlayStation games that were the Winning 11 series were called ISS Pro Evolution Soccer.
Oh, for God's sake.
But they're not part of the ISS tree. It's like a cousin. Pro Evolution Soccer became a nephew of
itself.
So only Konami would be so. Yeah, no.
Complicated for me.
But I just thought it'd be really interesting to bring up, because I still, after researching, haven't quite quantified. Like, you know, when you're trying to find out for like a football tournament, like, is it you're trying to find out who's playing who next, and you're doing the tabulations. It's just, like, basically the exact same thing.
And here we are. We're meant to be sounding like authoritative and informed, and I mean, I have no idea. Well, this sounds ridiculous.
I'm going to be honest. Like, I still feel quite informed and authoritative. Pickpacker. About it, because I've spent time researching it.
Days looking into it.
It just hasn't worked out well.
That's fair enough.
So
you're doing great. Keep going.
Yeah, no, thank you. ISS sequel at the time, another little trivia tidbit, was voted 34th out of a top 100 poll in Games Masters magazine for best game of all time. That is in. So,
nice.
Yeah, you know, that pretty good, you know, considering really that, you know, ISS Deluxe that is. And also, interesting enough, and I sent this to you the other day, I noticed that actually it does have a bit of retro love, because there is a website that you can buy. I think it's called Retro Games Project, or Project Retro Games, and they're on Instagram, and you can find them. And I saw a chap had bought a PlayStation 1 version of ISS Deluxe that was like a complete collection package, and it looked incredible. Like, it's in the amount of collectibles that are in there.
Oh, the one with the posters and the booklets and stuff.
It was so evocative how it looked in terms of the pastel colouring, all the players from the 90s and stuff. It, like, I imagine when it opened that up, it just felt like you were back in 1995. It was just the so I just like to drop those little bits in there, because if you're really into that kind of thing, then so it is called Project Retro Games. Definitely look them up, and if you want to have a look and I looked on their site and I found loads of different stuff there. They do bespoke retro games from the era and send you a brand new one, and it just, brand new PlayStation 1 disc. It just, I when you get the dribble emoji, I genuinely was like, oh, that's so good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not cheap. That version was like £60, but if that's what you're into and you love, definitely recommend it. So the 3 games from that top 100 poll as well at the time, just giving a flavour of the era here. In at number 3, Super Mario World. 2, Command and Conquer. And
the first one.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And number 1, Doom. So so that's where it was batting up against. Do you know what I mean? They were the big hitters.
It's funny how Command and Conquer never really pops up in these sorts of lists nowadays.
I know it is. I guess probably people would have had a feeling around Red Alert and stuff. They would have been like, oh, we love Command and Conquer and stuff. But like you say, you don't see it ever really on any top 100 list anymore. But so down to the football then. What were my impressions of this game immediately? I was really impressed with how it looked for the time. Mm-hmm. So I was just short of gobsmacked at how good the graphics looked on the SNES. And I know this was late on in the SNES's life cycle, and it was also released on the Mega Drive as well, and then went on to the PlayStation 1. But
I have the Mega Drive version somewhere.
It looked incredible. Like, isn't it? I couldn't believe it when I picked it up. I played it on my I played it as a port on my Ambernic.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, it just looked like, I was like, wow, like 1995 football looked like this. Because if you look at, I then went and played, just to have a comparison, went on to FIFA 1997 Mega Drive version, and that looks like shit compared to this game. I was like, wow, it's mostly around the player animations, really. Like, as in the backgrounds,
big chunky sprites and nice colours and stuff. Right?
The backgrounds haven't got that much going on, but you can tell they've really sunk a lot of time and energy into making these animations in the foreground that you're playing with look brilliant.
Nice.
So yeah, that was really cool. The modes, as soon as you get into it, there's a World Cup mode, and it clearly is an international football game. That is and that's where it's sort of geared to. There are no club teams here, and there's also a World Series, which basically is a season with an international team.
Okay, right.
So
as you do.
Yeah, there's training modes. So the training mode was particularly funny at one point, where basically you can practice your sort of core skills, your dribbling, your defending, your shooting. At one point, the feedback after one of my training sessions was, your defence stinks. The other team will score lots of goals. So, that was maybe like a rip from someone from Goalstorm. Like, Goalstorm, coming at you! It's like, but it's just, I love that they were just like, no, you're fully awful, mate. Like,
just stop playing now.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do any more training. Like,
just have a rest.
It's probably
eat an orange.
There is a scenario mode, which, as I've previously spoke about on the podcast, and I will allude to in future sports games as well. I love scenario modes. That I just like. They make complete sense to have them in a sports game. It just gives you that different twist on things where you go, right, you're 2-0 down, or you're 1-0 down to the USA and you're Brazil, and you have to score 2 goals in the next 45 minutes. The problem with that is I found it quite geared towards not being able to do it.
The scenario is impossible.
I mean, so you kind of get a point where, there's almost nothing you could do against the CPU. It's almost like, so the CPU is USA, and you go, right, I'm going to go on normal difficulty, and you're Brazil. And then, all of a sudden, it starts off with the USA throw-in, the scenario, and then they just string 2 passes together and score a goal. You're like, oh, this became I was meant to win 2-1, and now it's 2-0. I don't think this is working quite right. I don't think the algorithm knows what it's doing. But then, if that's normal difficulty, there must have been some people out there that are just like absolutely incredible ISS Deluxe, because jeez, I was like, oh my god, I need to go back down the peg. Not get the stinky defence remarks. Thank you very much. But yeah, I was happy they were there. There was a specific mode as well where you don't see this very often anymore. Penalty kick practice.
Oh yeah.
Which I super needed because on account of how many people I murdered in my own penalty area. It's in my slide tackling technique on ISS Deluxe.
That's 90s football, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, and you get to see a lot of the animations of the players rolling around injured. That isn't.
Nice.
There's lots of the classic Klinsmann diving and sliding across your chest when you score a goal. There's lots of, I would say, the detail they put into this game is very impressive. That not just how it looks, but also, you can choose the weather very specifically. You can choose the colour of your kit, so it almost lets you go, 90% green, a proper colour palette and stuff, which is really cool. You get to pick your sort of the type of stadium you're in, sort of like, hot desert stadium or something like that. It's just
hot desert stadium.
The type.
Sand everywhere.
Everyone's been there, the hot desert stadium. Hard to get a pint. The first few games that I played, and this is where I finally learned that I needed to knock the difficulty down from normal to rookie, basically. Was I went as England, and this is where the world ranking situation comes into it, who were at the time ranked poorly in the world. I didn't really correspond that in my head.
Account.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. And then I looked it up, I was like, and I got immediately humped 6-0 by Russia.
Excellent. Well done.
Where were Russia in the world rankings at that time?
Complete guess, I don't know, 15.
4th.
Really?
How good were Russia in 95?
Right.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I was like, all right, okay. So I was like, right, I better just probably, put it in my favour a little bit and pick a better team. So I was like, right, the Netherlands, I think they were number 2 in the world at the time. Yep. And I put against Bulgaria. And Bulgaria weren't horrendous, but they were sort of I think they were 15th, 16th. And I managed to win 3-2 in the last minute of extra time, a minute after I'd saved a penalty. Dude, nice. on my word, the
elation.
For the first time in about 20 years, I was so excited by a football video game. I was like, "Oh my god, Sally! Look what just happened!" She's like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like, can't wait to say this on the podcast.
Go sliding around the garden on your knees.
Yeah. Daddy, what are you doing? Leave me alone. Go. So yeah, that was exciting. I was then I got too big for my boots, and I was humbled once again.
Oh no!
By Russia, 6-0.
Russia, your bogey team.
Yeah, just a bit. Like, oh my god, that is in. So yeah, and I played as Italy, who won the cup. That is in. Like, so yeah, there was definitely some lumpiness in the difficulty settings. Like that was all played on normal, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm meant to do here. But yeah, I had a real blast getting back to a retro football game, and like I said, because I hadn't really played on any of these games in the 90s, played on a couple of FIFAs and stuff. What I kind of wanted to sort of get to really today was, is it worth playing a retro football game nowadays more than it is necessarily picking up a new football game? And can you dig it? Can you handle it? Can your brain handle it? But do you know what I mean? Like, as in, so the only real, like, it is the quintessential multiplayer couch game
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people now play online, probably with other people. It's obviously very easy to do. So that's one thing where you kind of think, well, you don't really have that ease of interacting with somebody else socially unless you get someone around your house, which is very, very rare, Richard. Probably because I've got my top off, running around the room going, "Ah!" To that Bulgaria. But yeah, just what are your thoughts on it? Because I definitely felt like I really enjoyed this experience, and I almost feel like if I do have someone around my house next to play video games, I will invite them to play a mid-90s football game, ISS Deluxe, because I really enjoyed it.
Can I answer that when I'm doing my review?
You can. That's excellent. Okay. Yes.
Remind me if I forget.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to say there's a couple of things there that, weren't perfect, because it's not, I don't want to come out and be like, oh, it's the best football game ever made, and can't be beaten now. So the collision detection is a very gritty, like, we've talked about the grid for Tomb Raider, for example, like, that works and you have to do it on a grid. This feels like you really are playing on a grid, like, as in, so trying to get your players to run off at an angle or your passes to go at an angle, it seems very difficult to do, and therefore feels quite limited. And also on that grid, you kind of get weird collision detection with the opposition. Like, it's almost like trying to dribble round a player. You can definitely see how it would be much better and easier to play a modern game of football on a video game than it would be to do back then. So that definitely limits your ability, like, and also the enjoyment a little bit. And as well, I guess it might be a problem with playing it on a port on a small screen or something, but the opposition went on normality mode.
Normality mode.
Whatever that is. We don't have that mode on this podcast. On normal mode.
Normality mode.
They come like flying onto the screen like fucking vampires. Like, as in, out of nowhere, you'll be like dawdling on, doing this dribble, you think, and you'll look at your little mini map and you think, oh, there's no one near me. And then out of nowhere, just like 1,000 miles an hour, they'll just fly into you and take the ball off you. And you're like, what? Where'd that guy come from? Like, so yeah, it definitely, I think that might have been a bit of a port situation, but also, I imagine even on a big screen, that would have happened where these players are just like, and that might just be, again, the lumpiness of the difficulty that even on normality mode, like Russia are out to get me. They were in 1995. They are now. So that's a solid 7 out of 10 for ISS Deluxe, and I really enjoyed my time playing that this week, and it was nice to see the origins of the uncle of Pro Evolution Soccer. Is what I would say, at least, anyway.
Cool. So Worldwide Soccer 98. I think we mentioned this when we were talking about doing our episode last summer, doing football games when we had our friend Paddy on. I think I mentioned Worldwide Soccer on the Sega Saturn because it's the one that has footballing legend, if you're English, Jack Charlton on it, and I only ever seem to annoy him. You're saying about the messages you got on ISS about your defence. Imagine that, being spoken at you in glorious, glorious stereo audio by a footballing legend, actually using the words, "They were awful." That hurts. That really hurt.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
He wasn't wrong, but I felt suitably chastened by the whole experience. And I kind of had this moment, to go back to your, before I forget, to go back to your question about going back and playing football games, while I was playing it, that actually some of my enduring favourites are the quote-unquote 98 footballing games. So like ISS 98 and FIFA 98, I still hold in really, really high regard. And I was playing Worldwide Soccer, and it's... The word that comes to mind is stiff. It's quite stiff. You know, you said about the grid system on ISS.
Yeah.
It feels like it's kind of more of the same. It's just that it can handle diagonals a bit better. You know, it's got your kind of very similar modes, World Cup. It's got club competitions in it. Okay. It was a Japanese copy, so unfortunately Aston Villa were Birmingham. Ooh. For anybody outside of the UK, that's tasty. But you know, they jumped to polygons by this point, and it looks good. I've been a fan of various Sega sports games for a long time, and it has that kind of Sega blue skies chunkiness to it.
Yeah.
Personally, I always preferred like Virtua Striker and stuff like that. So a bit more arcadey, but it felt like this was shared some DNA with it, in the fact that it was as subtle as a sledgehammer. Like there was no no finesse to any of the movements or anything like that. And I swear that whenever you shoot, you can't really gauge your power, and your shot always automatically just goes to the center of goal.
Oh yeah.
Now, for anybody that's ever been remotely near a sport, they know that generally it's good to be able to aim if you need to. And there might be a way of doing it, but unfortunately my instructions were in Japanese. So I did my best. And you know, the point is that it was very, very difficult to just like slide a ball into the bottom corner or anything like that.
How do you say bend it like Beckham in Japanese? I
have absolutely no idea, but there was zero bending of anything in this. Apart from maybe the stadium when it was scrolling past. I had a bit of texture warping on it. But yeah, so like the caveat with all that is that I was playing with the digital controller, and it does support the analog one. So it might be that were you using that, you might be able to have that sort of greater sense of control. But as it is, I was playing it with the digital pad, and you know, it's fine. You know, it's a 1-1 draw. You know, there was some goals, there was a little bit of drama, but ultimately everybody's going home, and it was just like, well, that was some football, wasn't it? And job done.
I can understand at this point like why people get pissed off with soccer and the idea of a draw and things as well. Like, like it. No one's even when people say, "Oh, we'll take a draw." Like, no one wants a draw. Everyone hates the idea of a draw. It's terrible.
It is a bit of an oddity, and yeah, like so it plays a solid game, right? The modes you've got there are solid. It does some odd little quirky things. Like you go through the menus, and weirdly enough, it reminded me a lot of the old ISS games, just from how it looks and the way the menus work. And you know, you're having to sit there occasionally and watch the CPU player choosing their squad when they're doing the substitutes and stuff like that, and you just kind of have to watch the menu doing its thing, and you know, all those sorts of things. But it doesn't have quite the same like kooky collection of unlicensed names like ISS 98 did, or like it's got some odd choices with the music and stuff like that on the menus. It's got that proper like, there's a distinctive like 90s, generally kind of Sega-ish kind of, we've got CDs now, we can put actual music in that's like kind of weirdly glangy, like lots of keyboards and pianos, and I always in my head associate it with golf games and stuff like that. or like sports programs on a Saturday afternoon in the sort of early 90s and stuff like that.
What
you know what I mean,
yeah,
though,
what
right?
is
There
with
is
that
a
soundtrack?
distinct sort of soundtrack, and it's got that. And like weirdly, when you get to the end of a match, it then kind of switches gear, and you have like a really ponderous version of Ode to Joy playing. That's almost like funeral march speed. It's really odd. And
Charlton just going, "You fucking bastard."
Well, that's the thing, because you're just like, it's Ode to Joy, and football is about like, you know, emotion and passion and oh god, it was depressing, frankly. And yeah, it's an odd duck. It's got some sort of similar collision woes, like you said about ISS Deluxe, and I think this was when I went back and played this and thought like, oh yeah, I really like the 1998 games. I think the things that I missed were a decent collision detection, decent physics on the ball, and the flip side is that I don't ever get that sense of, well, just stick your fucking foot out, you fucking lunatic. The ball's there. And whereas obviously in this you kind of don't really expect the players to be animated, you know, well enough to do anything like that. But on this particular game, you can dribble through people, like literally through them, and you know that's not ideal.
I need that.
I don't know. It's nice to have a bit of a challenge when that is the entire game.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it sounds like we had the opposite collision detection sort of issues.
Yeah,
my guys were brick walls. Guys are like ghosts.
Whereas this, I think it depended on the difficulty. In fairness, I think if you if you were against a different team that was a bit, you know, a bit more savvy on the ball, then I think it might be a different story, or you bump the difficulty up. But yeah, it just has some kind of odd touches to it that I'm not quite sure sat with me. And so I was sitting there playing it, thinking like, oh yeah, like I do miss retro football games. Like I've always liked those 1998 ones. And I was like, right, I'm going to test this. So I fired up FIFA 98 and ISS 98 as well, just to see if I was just thinking like, oh, rose tinted glasses and all that. No, no, they are genuinely miles better.
Yeah.
So like FIFA 98, like obviously as a FIFA game, the presentation is so good by comparison. The soundtrack is like, hey, hip guys, kind of, you know, like it feels much more trendy, and I mean that in a kind of weirdly endearing way, considering how old it is now.
Yeah. FIFA and Sky Sports definitely kind of the cool parts of football.
Exactly. Yeah. Like everything plays a bit snappier. I did have some weird like frame rate drops, and I don't know if that was my sort of grubby disc or if that was the game.
Okay.
But it wasn't quite as fluid as I remember. But when it was firing on all cylinders, it was really snappy.
Yeah.
I preferred, like Worldwide Soccer did this thing where instead of just holding down the sprint button, like you always seem to be able to do in FIFA games, and you just have that kind of stamina bar that runs down, it's more like a little dash. So you get a few yards on it, and you have to kind of keep tapping it for a prolonged thing. I really like that. Yeah. I like that as an idea. Rather than a stamina bar, have it as like this thing that you just do little dashes. Because it made me feel like I was more in control of some of my dribbles than I sometimes do in modern day FIFA.
Yeah.
And 98 felt like it was kind of sweet spot. And the commentary was good as well. I played against Vietnam, and they had all the player names on the commentary soundtrack and stuff like that. And ISS 98 it's still great. Like it looks great. It feels awesome. I got thumped 6-0.
6-0, popular score.
Well, weirdly, I was playing as England. I got thumped 6-0 by Uzbekistan.
Okay. Yeah.
So you know, I would say the difficulty is not to be sniffed at.
I wonder whether they were in the world rankings.
They were not as high as England. Yeah, like there were diving headers. There were there was all sorts in it, and crucially, you could slide the ball into the corner of the goal. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And so it just felt like it had much more control over it. So yeah, like on the whole, I think there absolutely is an argument to be had for going back to some of these games. I think they do still bring something to the table. And that's before you even include the ones that go off the beaten track a little bit, like Red Card and stuff like that, where you know you're deliberately trying to foul people. And yeah, like I had that moment of like, okay, Worldwide Soccer 98 then, like it's fine. It's solid. You can have fun with it, but is it going to be a game that, I mean, however many years on from 1998 I am right now, and it's got to be pushing about 30 at this point. It's not a million miles off. Am I going to be thinking about Worldwide Soccer 98 in, that amount of time? Probably not. No. Whereas ISS 98, FIFA 98, still very much, on my radar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna give Worldwide Soccer like a 5 out of 10. Like it's bang average. It's fine. You will have fun with it. But if you have access to other football games, you can have more fun.
That's good though to hear, because that's why I asked that question. Really, is because is it the rose tinted glasses? Is it that's possibly the height of your football fanship almost at that age, maybe, where you're kind of like, a young kid and everything's special and teams haven't quite let you down yet. So I was a bit like, well, actually, does that mean that you therefore held that in really high regard? But actually, no, they are genuinely within their own rights worth, certainly from what I've played, worth playing today with your friends, and or go through a season on your own and see how you get on, because I do think that it's an alternative to my complaints that was on the FIFA podcast, where it's just like I don't want to know about Ultimate Team, I don't want to know about all the microtransactions, I just want to know about playing football, and it sounds like something you can do, and I don't know why I've never thought of doing it before, really.
Yeah. And then and in things like, I think FIFA 98 had that indoor arena and stuff like that, which was,
you spoke really highly before,
yeah, but it was the only version that had that up until really recently. So yeah, I mean, if you look at it as alternative modes or slightly different tweaks on a formula, then yeah, you probably find all sorts.
Yeah, I think it's genuinely almost because it's brought out every single year, the expectation is almost in your brain, you're like, I have to update all the time, or I have to be up to date with the game, and therefore why would I go back to all the versions? But like, as in, we go back to all the versions of games all the time. It feels a bit stranger with sports games, but actually, you need to get past that.
I can't help but think that there must have been a conversation, say in EA or something like that, about FIFA, and could we make it a live service thing instead, so that you go in and pay per season for a new pack or something like that, but it's ultimately the same thing. They just keep iterating, and I mean that's kind of what they do with Pro Evo, I guess, or tried, and that didn't go well, I don't think.
eFootball now.
Yeah, so it's an odd duck.
So speaking of Pro Evo, then, so we're going to go into the other family family tree line, if you will. And so remember back then, so it's Goalstorm became Winning 11 Soccer, which actually was ISS Pro Evolution Soccer on the PlayStation 1 to start off with. So ISS Pro 1, ISS Pro 2 sold really well on the PS1, but it was probably in 2001 where you had the first Pro Evolution Soccer name, if you will, on the PlayStation 2, and that just became a completely different beast. And it was almost like, I think that certainly for maybe when I say this out loud, it'll probably sound like quite a short period of time. It probably wasn't really 6-7 years, actually, the lifespan of how good Pro Evolution Soccer was. And I remember on the previous podcast, you referred to and said, probably is it something to do with console generations? And I thought about that when I was reviewing this. And I think it definitely was, where it was almost like, and I can't remember, did Pro Evo make it over onto Xbox?
Yeah, I had a Pro Evo, I think it was Pro Evo 6 on Xbox 360.
Right, okay. Because I didn't know, because it was Konami, I didn't know whether or not they'd kind of like, because they were primarily PlayStation, weren't they?
Yeah, I don't know about the original Xbox.
No.
But Xbox 360, I'm reasonably confident had something.
Okay, because I wondered if that sort of like maybe stunted it like a little bit, where it was like, maybe
multi-platform.
It was more of a hotbed of PlayStation, and then PS3 didn't go very well at the start. A lot of people picked up Xbox, and maybe it just became sort of like that crossover period. And I think there was a period of time where FIFA just then basically went, right, we're going to take what Pro Evo is doing, because you can't really protect that, like it's a type of way of playing. And we've got all our licensed teams, and we've got our cool music, and now we've got our Ultimate Team in 2011, 2012 or whatever. And it was almost like then it just became just an inevitability. Yeah, exactly. There was nothing you're going to be able to do against that. But if we think about that peak of Pro Evolution Soccer, then sort of 2003, 2004. So Pro Evolution 6 for the PSP came out in 2006, and when I looked around at some of the scores and how it was rated and things, this was probably the highest rated Pro Evolution Soccer in terms of for the PSP. And it is a great handheld experience for playing football. Like, if I spoke about for ISS Deluxe about those difficulties I was having with the collision and the grid and things, this feels like free-flowing football. And it looks pretty good as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, it looks like... I think sports games are one of those things that you can make look good compared to, say, other games that probably have to have a little bit more polish, if you will. Whereas sports games are doing one specific thing, you don't have to worry about putting too much memory into other parts of it. So therefore, they can look great in what they're doing. So on a PSP, where you kind of go, it's a sort of, a PlayStation 1.75 or whatever. Actually, it's touching a PS2, really, / almost like, you think, well, actually, there's no difference between the PS2 graphics and the PSP here. So it does look brilliant. I think there's something endearing about the years of Pro Evolution Soccer, and everybody knows what it is. And it's that, like, it's weird that the unlicensed versus the licensed almost in a way. And it's like that plucky underdog where actually people love the weird unlicensed names of the teams and stuff.
David Beckham.
Yeah. So I've got a little quiz for you later on, some team names, actually. Oh, excellent. So from this. But a mini quiz here right now. And so when I played on Pro Evolution 6, which country do you think these three players are from? So I'll start off. So Calm, first name Calm Rollinson. Next name, which I don't know why I find it so funny, Camel Selector. Camel Selector. And one that will probably help an English person be directed to where this team is from, Renard Taffy. So quite on the nose with Renard Taffy.
Renard Taffy? I don't know.
No, Wales. So
Renard?
No, but taff is like isn't that slang for like Welsh, isn't it? I think it was.
I have no idea.
Oh right, okay, yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought they were great names. But I mean, that's 2006. This is coming from. It's not as if it's like like they really didn't slow down on the mental names they were giving players. They just lent into it more and more. Yeah. I love Calm Rollinson. Like,
that's a good one. Yeah. I'd like to think there's an angry Rollinson somewhere.
Oh, he was by the time I'd finished that game. And another thing I want to point out then, so like I did with the ISS Deluxe and talked about Project Retro games, so there is a website called unlicenssedfc.com where you can buy strips with shit names from Pro Evo, which is great, do you know what I mean? So, and I think that I'm more likely to buy something from there now than I would be to buy an actual licensed strip, because actually it's half the price. And it's got a little bit of sort of like, like that rose-tinted glasses feel where if someone spotted you in the street and was like, oh, that guy, look at him, that's what you'd be like, yeah, I'm a badass. That is in, whatever I've got the back. I'm trying to think one now. That is in, well, I could put Calm Rollinson on there, couldn't I, maybe? But yeah, the fun of Pro Evo was almost that you had two things. One thing that made it great, which was the way the game played, where it gets out its own way, it doesn't use any gimmicks. It feels like a proper football simulator and makes you play patient build-up football to create opportunities to score goals. It's not just like it isn't too difficult to score goals, and and it's also not an absolute goal fest either. It's almost just like it feels like a real game of football. Like, as in, like that you get the 1-1s, the 0-0s, the hard-fought 1-0 wins and stuff. Like, as in, they are there, and you can see it being built up. The player AI, like around you on your team when you're controlling the player, and then everyone, they move into space, they move where the through ball should be going, and the enemy AI, enemy AI, the defending team AI as well. Like it's really impressive. Like, as in the way they move around, and they can almost like you can tell they just took the time just to really be like, right, okay, this is what we're going to build our perfect football game on. Not what FIFA are concentrating on. And drew people to it for years. And it was and it's a shame that's not necessarily there anymore. But. And then there's the other side of it, the ridiculous side of it, as we spoke about with the names and stuff. But you could also just make absolutely mental, wacky players and wacky teams. So I think I spoke about it last time. But my friends from Carlisle at home, we used to sit for hours and hours and hours crafting teams. But we'd just whack everyone up to stats 99, which took a long time to do. You had to physically do that on the controller. Every member of your squad, every single stat up to 99. As soon as you bought the next iteration Pro Evo, all right, I better come around for that 9-hour session of stat manipulation, and then we'd give them all rainbow haircuts and stuff, and make them all one player would be 4'5", and then another player would be 7'9", and you just played Saudi Arabia versus Northern Ireland. These two teams are just and you'd be right, we're going to play an hour game. 35 to 16 or something like that. But Pro Evo just catered for that. It's there was never really that option. And in FIFA, I don't believe anyway. The most variety they had was the scratch and sniff grass disc for 2001, which is great. But there's only so many times you can scratch and sniff a disc. And I remember those times as well where Pro Evolution created rage quitting. I would say because of that, because it was so similar to football, just because it was so good at making you play a game of football, and you could get to that point where you've just slaved over a game in your Master League, which we'll get onto into a minute, and then you'll get there and you'll be like, oh, I've just got a really hard fought 0-0 draw, and someone scores in the last minute, the other team scores in the last minute, and those controllers they go flying, so they really do. I have seen some Smash TVs and Smash controllers in my time, and all Pro Evo based. I don't remember much else apart from Pro Evo being an issue and for that. So, and I've never quite got to that point where I've thrown a controller, but I've had one in my hand and I've thought this needs to go away from me right now. And the Master League, that's something that again it is own. It's weird because we spoke about previously with FIFA, and people will know this from playing FIFA. You can build up your own team from scratch, but your own team is usually a lower league team or something like that, and it's they are a real team. Whereas here, you genuinely, while it's a real team, it'll have a really shit name, and actually all the players are absolutely they're the same players every time. Is it Castolo, Zimelez, Minander, Burchett? They're my boys. Do you know what I mean? They're my boys, and they've been my boys since ISS Pro Evolution 1 on the PlayStation 1, all the way till 2006. So when I was playing the other day, I was like, not only is this a great game, I've got all my guys back. And then they're shit. They're fully awful. 5 games into my Master League season, I was I hadn't won a game, and I'm oh, you guys, come on, bring it in. And so a big cuddle in the centre circle. Don't worry about it. We'll get one. It's okay.
Keep plugging away, lads. Keep plugging away.
We'll beat that terrible team from the second league in Italy or whatever. We'll get them next time. You really do start to build into the game tactically, within the actual matches, and also on the strategy screens, which are there's enough fiddling to do on this game, and also all the Pro Evos before it, you can set your formation, and you can set it to your press, and there's an actual arrow drawn on your screen, so it's have your formation in, so your players look like an arrow. I know that looks terrible, but from a footballing point of view, but from aesthetically, I want that. So there's enough tinkering in there, and I always, there's something about having a coloured a coloured arrow saying, "Oh, this player is on fire," so it'll be red up, or this player's feeling a bit glum, so it's a down blue, which is just so much better than a percentage number that would be on any other football game to sort of say, "Oh, this player's condition is 87% or something." No, he's downward arrow blue. that guy. That's how he feels. Well, actually, they turned into sad faces. So they turned into the actual globes that bounced around, little faces and stuff. So all these little tiny things that just make you think, oh, I miss Pro Evo. I miss.
It's endearing.
Yeah, it really is, and I felt like it took that kind of space for me to realise that actually a lot of a lot of what makes Pro Evo good is the shit bits, the bits that kind
Quirky
of
bits.
yeah, well,
The
yeah,
quirky
exactly,
bits.
yeah, exactly, not shit bits, quirky bits, and things that are probably just a bit more abstract. Like, and then also on top of that, it's just a really good football simulation game as well. So yeah, it's still like this particular version. The loading times so I played this on a UMD. The loading times are awful, like fully awful. Like, as in Sims 2, awful. Like, it's wasting so much time. It was like mostly when you were just like. When you're playing in a game and in a mode, it was fine. But like getting from the menu to that mode, and you're like, oh god, I want to play a game of football. It's not like so. Clearly, those graphics that are so good, it really was taking a lot of power out of the PSP. Yeah. And also in this version as well, there was no commentary. Like, as in, so Peter Brackley, the man who did the commentary, everyone knows Peter Brackley, he basically he would. If you scored, if you scored inverted commas, he would say, "Oh, it's a goal!" But all the rest of the time it was just completely silent. And I'm like, "Oh, like that's annoying," because again, some of that wacky quirkiness of Pro Evo came through from some of his commentary as well. So it is a shame that this feels like almost like the precipice of the edge of. You can see that this is Pro Evo at its peak. But with hindsight, this is where it's about to tip off. It's about to fall off.
The slightly compromised version of greatness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, where would I put this compared to ISS Deluxe then? You're moving 10 years forward, but I'd say that this time round when I played them, and this is me reviewing them in 2024, I enjoyed ISS Deluxe more. Although Pro Evolution Soccer is still on the PSP, still a great port. But as we've said before, I'm going to say 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 still means it's a good game. It sounds like damning with fake praise, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like, I'd still recommend playing this game on the PSP nowadays. It was just the loading times were really annoying. No commentary was really annoying. I think you're probably better playing this on a home console, if I'm going to be honest, from the same era. And then I'd recommend going back and do that. But if you need to play Pro Evo on the move on your PSP, it's not horrendous. Do you know what I mean? You just have to wait a little bit.
To be ready.
So with that in mind then, talk about the era of Pro Evo. Like I said, I had a little quiz for you at the end then. So who are these teams in Pro Evo?
Right.
These are from sort of, various Pro Evolution Soccer games over the early 2000s. West Yorkshire Town.
West Yorkshire Town.
West Yorkshire Town. That is a clue.
Huddersfield.
Yes, well done. Ding ding ding. AN white red. Capital AN white red.
AN white red.
I assume that AN stands for something. I've not quite worked out. It doesn't seem to correlate in my head. AN white red.
Oh God. Yeah. The only one I've got isn't Merseyside red like Liverpool.
No, so they're from a different country than England. No, Sevilla. AN white red, Sevilla. PM black white. So a famous black and white, again, not from this country.
Juventus?
Yes, well done. Now, these ones, you'd have to know the geography to be really upset by these.
Great.
No, as in, like, what I mean that is for our listeners that are far-flung lands. The Lake District. So that is in the northwest of England. And this is for another team in England somewhere. The Lake District.
Oh, they are literally just called the Lake District.
That's the team. That's what they're called. They were called Lake District.
Oh, who would be a wind-up version? I don't know, like Everton?
No, West Ham.
West Ham?
So West Ham is in London.
What?
300 miles away from the Lake District. That is it.
What?
At one point, West Ham were called Lake District. And then this one then...
Why?
So this team is called Dublin. Dublin, which is the capital of Ireland.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, shit, from that last one, it could be anywhere.
It could be.
Oh, God.
It's not in the same country.
All right, Scotland.
Yeah, it'd be great if it was Aston. No, that's Aston Villa, who have already been called Birmingham.
Poor old Aston.
I know, they've been hammered, haven't they? So, yeah. At one point, Dublin existed as Aston Villa.
God.
So, and that's what was awesome about Pro Evolution Soccer. That is in you. As soon as you saw that, you'd be like, well, that's absolutely crazy, and I'm glad I spent my money on you.
But I tell you what, like Pro Evo, like I always liked it, but the moment I fell in love with it was when Reading finally got to the Premiership and were in it as Berkshire Blues.
Yes.
It's like, you know what? Yes, we've arrived.
So yeah, that was our. I know I used the word. I kind of said to myself at the start of the podcast that I wasn't going to use the word football, but I just fell into it. So I'm really sorry. That was our soccer podcast about 3 and more games and around soccer and mostly from sort of mid-90s to mid-2000s. And I guess it mostly sounds like a recommendation from us to kind of go back and play some of those if you can.
Don't be scared of them.
Yeah, it's part of retro game that people think that actually, sports games, why would you go back to a sports game because it's, the lesser iteration. But actually, I think that there are some out there that are better than what could be out there now.
And I'll tell you what, like just saying about Berkshire Blues and Reading's time in the Premiership and stuff like that, they're little time capsules as well.
Yeah.
Especially with club modes and stuff like that. Like the Sega Worldwide Soccer, I think, had Barnsley or someone on it or something like that, and you just... Yeah, have those little moments of like, oh yeah, I remember when they were like doing the rounds.
Doing the rounds. That's what they basically were. They were into the Premier League, got a whole 10 points out of the Premier League.
Yeah, but still, they made it into a video game that was published in Japan.
I
so
know,
like,
that is cool.
Play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, claim to fame.
Yeah,
sort of. Right, cool. Thanks very much, guys.
All right, cheers.
Bye.